Listening to the Jake Asman Show on the SportsMap Radio Network.
Presented by Rocket Mortgage.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Jake Asman.
Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day.
Out to Durant. Durant, one dribble, fires it up. Oh, back of the rim. Jubilation here in Milwaukee. The Bucks are right back in the series.
Mike Breen on ESPN with the call. So the Nets lose game 3 in Milwaukee. Milwaukee wins. And a lot of people are going, wow, the Bucks are right back in the series. And, you know, by virtue of winning game 3, technically they are. Game 4 will be tomorrow afternoon. But I'm sorry. From a Nets perspective, you only lose by 3 and you played your worst offensive game of the season, you're fine. The Nets are winning the series in 5. Nothing the Bucks did in game 3 showed me anything. Nothing. From a Nets perspective, they played their worst offensive game of the year. KD and Kyrie Irving shot a combined 20 of 50. Joe Harris, who's the NBA's leader in three-point percentage, was 1 of 11 from the field. And then, oh yeah, James Harden is out. And the Bucks only won by 3 points. Milwaukee's not winning this series. Sorry. Nice that they showed some pride and they won a game, but not winning a series here. I think even if they win tomorrow, I wouldn't pick them. You look at this series and, you know, it was kind of similar what happened to the Nets against the Celtics in the last round. They dominated games 1 and 2, went into Boston. It took a 50-point performance by Tatum for them to win game 3. And then the Nets won game 4 and game 5. See you later, Boston. The same thing's happening here until I get proven otherwise. I am so down on the Bucks. James Harden a couple of years ago came out and said something about Giannis and Antetokounmpo, and he took a lot of heat for it. Harden said, quote, "I wish I could just run, be 7 feet, and just dunk." And he said that Giannis really doesn't have any skills. And you know what? He took a lot of heat at the time, but he's kind of right. You see that video clip of Giannis trying to put on a move on one of the Nets defenders, and then instead of really going to anything in his bag, he just dribbles the ball out and then runs the old fullback dive at the Brooklyn Nets defender. Giannis is a phenomenal regular season player, but he doesn't have enough offensive skills to really take over a game. And that's a problem if you're going to be the best player on the floor, or you're supposed to be as a 2-time MVP. And the other issue you have with Giannis, and Jeff Van Gundy was all over this at the end of the game the other night, when your best player is an absolute liability at the free throw line, that's a major concern. And Giannis just cannot hit free throws to save his life. Like, who's more of a liability? Ryan Gosling in coverage and Remember the Titans, or Giannis at the free throw line? They're both absolute liabilities. And the Bucks only won this game because Joe Harris shot 1 of 11. I mean, it's as simple as that. Now, of course, the Nets aren't without controversy. Kevin Durant's bodyguard has to be running onto the court to protect him. How weak is that? KD can't fight his own fights with PJ Tucker? Weak. But I'm sorry. I love Giannis as a person. He's been a nice guy the couple times I've had interactions with him after a game. I just don't know if he's ever going to be the type of player that can really elevate to the next level. And you watch Kevin Durant in a side-by-side comparison with Giannis, and you're like, man, Giannis is a great player. And then there's James Harden, or there's Kevin Durant, and those guys are all-time greats. And that's the difference. I think James Harden was spot on about Giannis, because now we've had enough of a sample size to really see it. Like, what do you do if you're Milwaukee and you lose this series in 5 games? Which is where I still think it's headed. You're going to fire Budenholzer? Is he the problem? Okay, you can fire the coach. Well, that's because you can't fire the players. Giannis is signed. You traded all your assets to get Drew Holiday. Middleton's a nice player. He's just not as good as the stars in the Nets. What do you do if you're Milwaukee? You're kind of stuck. And I am not impressed at all by that win. I'm just not. The Nets scored 83 points. The Nets normally score 83 points at the end of 3 quarters. It's not going to happen again. Kyrie and KD are not shooting a combined 20 of 50. Joe Harris is not shooting 1 of 11. And oh yeah, James Harden's still out. They probably win if Harden plays the other night because I'm sure Harden's not having a terrible game too, like KD did in the first half and Kyrie did throughout. And the Nets still almost won that game. Durant almost hit the 3 at the end there. I'm down on the Bucks, man. I thought, I got to be fair though, because I said the winner of the series I thought would go to the NBA Finals, maybe even win the championship. And well, the Nets win. I'm not picking against them. I don't know how you could. We talked the last segment about Utah and Phoenix, and they've been great. Do they match up with Brooklyn? I mean, if Brooklyn's at their very best, I don't know if any team can match up with the Brooklyn Nets. Kind of the reality of where we're at right now with the playoffs. 800-224-2004. That's 800-224-2004. I'm also on Twitter at Jake Asman, JakeAsman is where you can follow me. Is any team stopping the Nets? I mean, is that where we're at right now? I know Suns are good, Jazz are good. But, man, as long as the Nets get Harden back, and I think they will, I don't know if anyone's beating them. Because are the Nets really going to have another night where they're that bad offensively and only score 83 points? Probably not. And once again, Milwaukee still only won by 3. I'd be concerned if I was a fan of the Milwaukee Bucks. Because what do? You kind of put all your chips in the middle and said we're all in, and you might flame out in the second round. What do you do? Fire the coach? Okay, that's been done. Is that going to make a big difference? I don't know. What do you do if you're the Bucks? Kevin Zepak is producing today. Kevin, you're a big NBA guy. You look at the NBA here. You look at the Brooklyn Nets. Is any team beating Brooklyn? What's the confidence level with the Nets?
In the East or just...
In general.
I mean, call me a prisoner of the moment, recency bias, whatever you want to say. It seems like we are headed toward Phoenix and New Jersey. Or New Jersey, look at me. Look at me showing my age. Brooklyn, I'm sorry. They'll always be the New Jersey Nets.
They've been in Brooklyn for 8 years, and you just called them the New Jersey Nets.
I figure you, as a New Yorker, would appreciate that.
I believe me, I do. I love it because most of the Net fans are still in Jersey.
Yeah, and I get that. Listen, as the fan of the second baseball team in Chicago, I understand that little syndrome.
You bring that up. The disparity between the Knicks and the Nets is like 95-5.
Right.
The disparity between the Cubs,
it's probably
and
like
White
70-30.
Right.
Yeah.
And White Sox fans are still very passionate. It's a very passionate fan.
Of course. Yeah. I don't know. Are people? Here's a question for you. By the way, to answer your first question, Phoenix and Brooklyn looks like the matchup now. Of course, you still got to pay attention to Philly and Utah, but I would put my money on Phoenix and Brooklyn being in the finals. But just as an aside, as somebody from that area, did people from Jersey continue to support the team after the move to Brooklyn?
Yes.
Okay. Did they have to move to Brooklyn? Because that's much more expensive than living in New Jersey is living in Brooklyn.
No, they are. They drive to the games.
The tunnel, right?
Yeah, the old tunnel.
Yeah. Be in tears.
That's what you got to do to get there. Get to Barclays Center. I mean, the problem for the Nets is even when they were in New Jersey, it's just the Knicks fan base dwarfs them. Like the NBA Finals ratings when the Nets were in the finals and played the Lakers and Spurs were like 2 of the lowest rated finals ever. And it's funny. I don't want to belittle the Nets because they do have passionate fans, like the fans that are actually like real Nets fans. But it's just like I'm just putting it in perspective for a moment. When the Nets win the championship, let's say, the conversation on local sports talk radio that day is going to be the Nets have won the championship. What do the Knicks have to do to get to that level? It's not going to be about celebrating the Nets. And that kind of just puts it all in perspective. Like if the White Sox were to win a title, you talk about the championship. You wouldn't be like, what do the Cubs have to then do to catch up to them? It is wild that the Nets are one of the best teams possibly ever assembled when it's all said and done. And they're a huge story nationally. Yet in New York, there just isn't any buzz about them at all. There's way more buzz about the Knicks, who won a playoff game this year for the first time in 8 years. And the fans went nuts on the streets outside the Garden. We'll talk more NBA and much more coming up next.
O'Reilly Auto Parts is here to keep